Yo, welcome back to Ascending with Ashley. I'm Ashley. This is a daily decolonizing course. It's been about a month since I posted. Hey, sorry about that. I wanted to give you time to digest colonization. No, in all reality, I completely kept forgetting, and also my kid has been like industrial strength Velcro for the past couple months. So I actually tried recording this earlier today and he interrupted, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna wait because it was a horrible. I'm like, no, no, I can't be interrupted. So, if you're new here, hi. This is a course that I offer at the local community college. I just do non-credit stuff, and no one has signed up. But lucky you, I'm doing it for free over here. So, let's go ahead and talk about it. So today we already did the first class. We've only done two. Was all the words that we're gonna need to like a common understanding of definitions and whatnot. And then the second week was looking at colonization. So hopefully, if you're here for today, you went to that one. If this is the first time you're seeing me, go check out, at least in the very least, go check out what colonization is to give you a good idea of why decolonizing is important. Okay? I think we should go ahead. Hang on, how many pages do I have of this? Okay, so we're just gonna do one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. So there will be 7 more classes, I think. But we're just gonna do one today. So the first class, or the second one about colonization, was like 3 different slides. So today we're gonna talk about what is decolonizing, okay? I know my hair is crazy. I was gonna take a shower and I'm like, you know what? If I take a shower, I'm never gonna fucking do this. So let me do this. What is decolonizing? If you'd like a copy of the workbook, that's what I'm looking at. I make my own workbooks. If you'd like a copy, just email me at ascendingwithashley at gmail.com and I will get you a PDF. Okay? Decolonizing, as we're referring to it in this class, is the individual process of taking inventory of your own indoctrination. This is the process of unlearning what we have been told and the ways we have been conditioned to think, feel, and live a certain way that benefits this system. When we do this process, we allow ourselves to live from a more healed, whole space in which we trust ourselves first, instead of constantly seeking external validation from others around us or others outside of us, meaning idols, athletes, celebrities, things like that. Right? Decolonizing ourselves is how we become the change we wish to see. It is the praxis, which is the action piece to theory and practice. So it's like the glue between those two things. So let's break that down. And I have some examples that I'd like to share. Those are in my notepad. What am I doing? I'm so tired. Today was exhausting for some reason. I got a lot done, but I'm tired. Okay. Okay, so decolonizing for me is this process. I started decolonizing when I was in my master's program. I took a course. My master's degree is about in social justice and human rights. Marley, or Lola, get down. Lola! Anyway, my master's degree is in social justice and human rights, and we did a course about decolonizing methodologies, which is, research based, but it was so hard. So that's when I was introduced to decolonizing. And it was a really hard thing for me to sit with, and that was in about 11 years ago, in 2014. And so I've been on this process. I've always been a little bit more aware. I mean, technically, I think my decolonizing process probably started back in my early 20s. But I was really, really reprimanded for that, like locked up and medicated and shit, because my family was like, you're embarrassing and you're crazy. And I'm like, no, I'm just aware of knowledge that you don't have. Anyway, there's a little bit more to it. But anyway, all that to say is this is a process. I talk about this a lot on my channel during my readings and stuff about decolonizing and healing and choosing to come into consciousness. I think they're all related. I don't think that decolonizing is only for white people. I think decolonizing is something that all of us in this modern world need to be doing, regardless of our class, race, abilities, everything. I think within that there are definitely nuances. There's definitely layers to that, but I believe that these systems have done a very thorough job of indoctrinating all of us, regardless of our privileges, regardless of our backgrounds and families and everything. Some worse than others. But I think that a part of the decolonizing is this recognition of how the system works, right? And I think when we understand how the system works and our part in that, right? So if you think of the system, so what I mean by the system is everything that we have, the way that we spend money, the way that we have to consume, the way that we have to go to careers, the way that we have to go to school, everything is set in place to keep things in a certain order. And decolonizing, so we talked about colonization the last time, and again, I apologize for such a large break. It's been a rough season, but anyway, I love this song. So when we think about colonization and the way that colonization has its hand in everything, right, and how, especially with technology now, it's very hard for people to, I think technology makes it harder for people to recognize when they are being controlled, personally. Because you have this, not you, but we have this, why am I losing all my words? We have this, what is this word? This idea, I guess, belief that, you know, everything that we consume via the internet is like specially marketed towards us, right? So if there's things that you don't want to see, you won't see them, right? And if there are things you want to see, you will see them. And I think that is really serving the powers that be a lot. I'm not here to talk about technology specifically, but I think that that's an important thing because we all consume technology, or we all use technology, consume social media, mass media on a small scale, right? And it's constant. You know what I did today? I created a whole bunch of new emails and I deleted every single fucking email out of all of my emails. I have a bunch of new business projects that I'm doing, and so I'm like, I'm gonna make all these new emails. So then I made logos for each email, you know, like put on the little thumbnail. And then I deleted everything. So that felt good. I have no emails. I love that. I'm like, you know, a lot of the times I would like clean things out and like keep it, and I'm like, no, I don't need this shit, right? So I don't know. And then I deleted all my text messages and my call history and everything, and so everything is like white. It's a clean slate. And I think that's kind of, I'm sharing because it's kind of the same as decolonizing. It's about unlearning, right? It's about unlearning the things that you've been conditioned. Now, let me give you a couple examples so as I've been on my decolonizing process, anti-racism goes into that, anti-classism, you know, things that I've had to decolonize from, the church, my family. I'm no contact with my family. I will keep it real. My mother's in my life currently, but I don't know about that. We're going to have some conversations, and I don't see this continuing. But anyway, it was because my cat died, and I needed help taking care of that. But anyway, or he needed to die. He was ready to go. Anyway, all that to say is some of the things that as a mother I have, I'm raising my son differently. Great example is holidays. We don't do holidays over here. I acknowledge the season, but I don't make... Why are you glaring at me? I don't make a big deal. We definitely don't do Santa. Santa is propaganda. He's capitalist propaganda. Don't do Santa. Santa also has the same word or letters as Satan, so be careful with that. We don't do Thanksgiving, obviously. Maybe that's not obvious. Thanksgiving is a holiday that is sold as a celebration, but it was the beginning of a genocide, and colonization of the Americas. We don't celebrate that in my family. I don't celebrate any holidays. We don't even do, like, I think that holidays are, personally, this is my belief. You don't have to believe this, but I am going to share because I think that holidays are a big thing to decolonize from. Because when you start to see everyone else like frenzy about holidays, and you're like, that's silly. So like Valentine's Day, we actually celebrate like the Native Hawaiians overthrowing, what is it, Captain Cook or Hook or whatever. I don't think it's Hook. It's Peter Pan. But anyway, how they took out a colonizer, right? So we celebrate on that. I mean, I don't really talk to my son about it, but like we watch PBS Kids and we watch other cartoons, so he sees that stuff. Like, for instance, today he was watching Shimmer and Shine, and there was a Santa Claus, and so I told him, I'm like, we don't celebrate like that. We don't, Santa's not real, right? I mean, it is a cartoon. He can see that the other things aren't real either, but I definitely do not do Santa, and we don't even do Christmas, really. We still have our Halloween tree up, and we're just gonna call it a day. I think when you start to decolonize, you really allow yourself to connect back to nature, and I think that's part of it, right? Because colonization was the removal of indigenous thought and belief and practice, and putting it into these systems of control and obedience and imbalance, right? So there was this, when colonization happened, regardless of where in the world you're thinking, it was the removal of indigenous belief, indigeneity, and it is unsustainable. It's not, obviously, hopefully this is obvious, it's not a sustainable practice as a whole, as a model, by any means. Colonization is not imperialism, capitalism. These are not, there's a reason Trump's administration is banning these words, right? Because they know that that's what they're doing, right? So anyway, thinking about that, decolonization is also, especially if you are someone who has colonial lineage, and that's a term I use a lot. What I mean by that is if your ancestors or people in your direct family line, both, right, were some of these people who carried these atrocities out, right? Like, were you the descendant of Buffalo Bill, the man who decided to take out all of those buffaloes because, what did they say, starve, what did they say? I don't want to say it incorrectly. Buffalo Bills saying, oh my god, the Buffalo Bills, that's a team? No, back in the day, wasn't that his name? So the killing of the buffalo was the eradication of native folks out west. The killing of bison or buffalo in the American West was a massive near-extinction event in the 19th century, driven by commercial hunting, sport, and policies aimed at Native American subjugation, drastically reducing vast herds to near extinction through slaughter, hide hunting, disease, fundamentally altering ecosystems in indigenous cultures. There's this photo. I know you know this photo. Let me pull it up. These are all buffalo skulls. Like, that's how many they were killing. That's a Buffalo Bill. Isn't that guy's name? Or maybe I'm thinking, like, is that Silence of the Lambs? I don't fucking know. But, indigenous thought was, and practice was, and still is in a lot of cultures, if they're able to stay connected to their practices in their, ceremony, is every piece of the animal was used, right? So when you're doing a mass extinction event like the, colonizers were doing, I think it's important to be able to label who's a colonizer and who's not, right? And I think in modern society, again, it's harder to know that because everything has been, what's that word? assimilated, right? We've all been put in this, right? So there's lots of tactics. We talked about the tactics last week, or last time with colonization. We talked about how am I involved in colonization. So decolonizing is the recognition of not only being a part of this system, but taking on a personal responsibility to really align yourself with not only what's like ethically correct. So I believe there's a difference between morals and ethics. Personally, I think morals are more of a religious based doctrine, right or wrong, whereas ethics are like when you're conscious and aware, and you like respect nature, you know when something's right or wrong. Like you respect that there's a life cycle, right? Like the song from The Lion King, Circle of Life, right? And you do your best to participate in that ecosystem without centering yourself. That's another part of decolonization, is not, as a human, removing yourself from the center of the world and recognizing that you're part of an ecosystem. And as a part of an ecosystem, you have a responsibility, right? I mean, that's what the land back movement is a lot about, too, is about giving the land back to, and not even like fully, literally, but like allowing indigenous folks to lead because of what we're seeing with global warming and climate change and these atrocities, right? Think about how these powers that be, I mean, Trump is just announcing that we're going to war with Venezuela for oil. Okay, so let's think about all of the oil spills. Let's think about how many gallons or tons of, or, you know, entire waterways have been completely polluted by oil, right? Maybe the oil should stay where it's at, and maybe we as humans should find different ways, right? Like things like that. So this is the process of decolonizing, is confronting these hard truths about not only what kind of world we live in, but recognizing and taking responsibility for ourselves within that. And a lot of us, when we take on that responsibility, also do it for our family lines. So going back to the colonial lineage, were you a descendant of one of these people who came out west and wanted to help eradicate the native population by taking out their food source, their clothing source, their shelter source? Because again, every piece of that animal, the buffalo, was used for all of those things. The hides, right, were used for the teepees, were used for shelter, were used for clothing, were used for the drums, right? And they still are, if people are able to practice. But a lot of laws have been put in place, right? And taking the land and putting people on reservations, that's what the United States has done. And then taking people from other countries or continents, bringing them here and forcing them into building, right? Slavery, okay? Chattel slavery for black folks, for African people. So there's all of these layers to decolonizing, and it starts with understanding that the history that we've been taught has been, again, it's an indoctrination. And an indoctrination, let's get the full definition of that. Indoctrination is the process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically. So that's indoctrination. So when we decolonize and when we take on this responsibility, and this is a lifestyle change. It's not just, I'm going to learn about a couple things and I'm going to be like, oh man, that sucks, that's bad. Well, I would never do that. Okay, of course you wouldn't do that, because why would you kill a buffalo, right? Of course you're not going to do that because you already have this apartment, right? Like, so it's not that. It's not, I didn't do it, so it's not my responsibility. It's acknowledging what's happening, acknowledge what has happened, understand that you've been told a certain set of things to believe that were true, and it was called education, and taking responsibility for unlearning that shit and relearning, while also actively doing your part to ensure that there's more balance, okay, whatever that looks like for you. One thing I say a lot of the times is organize locally and network globally. So if you see people, in other countries that are doing things to combat colonization, right? I'm not really talking about about protests. I'm talking about more like sustainability practices, right? Like people who moved. Like I'm thinking of a couple. I don't. Were they in Brazil? There was this one couple who planted trees on their land. They bought a plot of land and they planted trees for like 50 years. I don't know. Who planted 20 years? It was Brazil. I was right. The couple famous for planting trees for 2 decades, restoring a forest in Brazil. Our renowned photographer Sebastião, I'm not saying that right, Salgado, and his wife Leila Wanek Salgado. I'm sorry if I know I mispronounced that. I am, again, part of my decolonizing process is recognizing when I am completely wrong. So they transformed their family's barren land into a thriving ecosystem through their organization, Instituto Terra, planting millions of trees and bringing back the wildlife. So that's the kind of shit, right? What can you do that can literally change the world, change the earth, right? Not just for yourself, but for others. So here they are. So that's before. When did they start? 2001 to 2019. So this is like very recent past, right? This isn't like something that happened 50 years ago. So, you know, I have land. I should build. Well, I'm going to do an eco build. I'm doing my best. But my plans, as someone who really grappled with buying land, especially on native land, like I'm right under the Navajo reservation. And so it was a big deal for me to even purchase land there and then be like, like, I don't feel right about that. So it's not my plan to keep that to myself. My plan is to eventually give it back, and also like sign the deed over to someone who is native to this land, and also but also having like my son have a spot. But I also want to turn that into a space for other mothers and children, right? Like a refuge. I'm working on getting my money up because that's what I need to continue that project at this point. But that's something that I've really thought about and really, you know. So again, it's not just like, decolonizing is a larger process. It's a lifestyle change. It's a completely different way of life. And you are going to be on the outskirts of the society in which you are decolonizing from, which means you are going to be faced with, and we talk about this all the time in the readings, you're going to be faced with resistance. You're going to be faced with people who do not believe in what you're doing, who want to call you horrible things, and they don't want to make it impossible for you because a few things, right? They're guilty. They don't want to face their own shit. I think decolonizing is, I mean, it's so challenging to be someone who is actively decolonizing, especially in, well, any times, right? But it's very obvious that people who are doing this are targets of the system because, of course, we are. There's power in doing this, and without that acknowledgement of that power, colonization, it needs people to push back. It is not sustainable for the planet. It's not sustainable for us. It's not. Look at how many animals are, like, whole entire species are going extinct because of the practices, right? For what? For fucking paper ass money, right? So I think that's the thing. It's about pulling our scope way back and being like, what really fucking matters? Because it's not this. And it's an acknowledgement in, unfortunately, all of us, regardless of our nationality, regardless of our ethnicity. If there's like 1 or 2 tribes left on the planet that have been untouched by modern society. So all the rest of us who are participating in modern society to certain degrees, whether we're indigenous or not, have a part in this, right? How are you participating, right? One thing that I've been really going through the past, started last fall, was getting in touch with my more indigenous side, because I am European, Caucasian, obviously, but I do have some, I mean, I'm not an oppressed person. My lineage is not oppressed. I do have colonizer blood, even though when I've asked my aunts on both sides about my own blood, they won't really give me that information because I'm the black sheep in the family, and they don't want to do that work. Like I already said, they've like researched the family trees immensely, but they like will not give me that information. And when I got married to my husband, who's black, it was very important to me to understand my family's lineage. And both of them were like, "Oh, we didn't have any slaves or anything." That's not what I asked, first of all. They like came to that conclusion by themselves. But they like would not give me the information. So I've been really looking into and feeling into what connects me to the earth more than my family line. And for me, it is that I have some Scottish in me. And so I've been learning about it. I joined a Facebook group for my clan. My grandmother's last name. I looked up a couple things that I could get my hands on. And so my grandmother on my father's side, who I've always had a little bit of a interesting bond with. I think she knew things about me that I never really got to know about myself until this point. And I don't know if she ever got to know herself like that either, because she was in a very oppressed marriage. But my grandma, I don't know. I was the youngest for a long time until my uncle had kids, and so I think my grandma had a special place in her heart for me. But anyway, her maiden name is Campbell, and Campbell is a Scottish clan. So I joined the Scottish clan on Facebook, and I actually just saw the other day that means crooked mouth, which is really funny because my mouth and the way that I talk has changed, and it looks more crooked now. And so I thought that was interesting. But I've really been connecting to that Scottish lineage past year. It's really been calling to me. And that's helped me a lot to not only alleviate my own guilt about how I do participate in colonization, but I think when we recognize where we're from, right, and like the land, like the earth, the part of the earth that we're from, all of us are indigenous to some part of the planet. That doesn't mean like I was born in New York, I'm indigenous here. No. It means like your lineage before colonization, right? Pre-colonization, because it hasn't always been a thing. So pre-colonization, your lineage, the people who came before you came from a piece of land, right? So it's about connecting to that to really get your sense of self, right? Especially if you are choosing to do generational healing work, right? Clearing stuff, breaking cycles, saying this stops with me. And that's another thing that decolonizing is about. This stops with me. And when we do make mistakes and when we do revert into old patterns or things that others have done, like this isn't an easy task, but we take accountability and we take responsibility and we make a commitment to change and do better. I mean, right? So that's where I'm at with this. I hope this was helpful. I know that I centered myself a lot, but I think that it's important to hear what the process is like. Because I started this process with like a legal pad, and I realized how much deeply embedded white supremacy I had in me when I was married to my son's father. And I was like, holy shit, like this isn't who I am. This isn't what I believe. Where is this coming from? And that's what started my journey into myself. Now my journey of decolonizing and learning the truth of the systems started a long, long time ago, like a good 20 years ago. Yeah, I've always been skeptical. Well, actually, I would say it probably started when I left the church. So around 15, 16 years old is when I started questioning everything. I'm like, you know what, I'm not accepting this truth just because people are like telling me, And I think, something that stayed in my mind, when you are going through this process, again, you're going to be confronted by the people closest to you. A lot of people are not going to want to do this. A lot of people are not going to want you to do this. And people are going to do a lot of things to get in your way. And in this current administration, it's probably best to keep these things as private as possible and find other people who have similar, email me. I want to be your friend. Ascendingwithashley@gmail.com. Seriously, email me. I'm here for you. I don't really have people in my life. It's hard for me to talk about the weather and other, things that I'm not interested in, because I see through everything. It's like escaping the matrix, it's whatever language you want to call it. But decolonizing is essentially escaping the matrix. But I know that language has been co-opted by, like, supremacists. Like, it's weird. It's like I'm getting like a pendulum swinging. And it's like, the bottom line, the bottom line is that all of us have been miseducated. Even if you have a high degree, especially if you have a high degree, honestly, we've all been miseducated. And I think that's, at least, in the very least, we can agree on that. When was the last time you used pi? But it would have been really cool to actually know, who was native to the land that you grew up on, right? We didn't learn that shit. We learned shit we didn't need to know. So yeah. I think holidays are a great way to start the process. Well, holidays are kind of hard, actually. But again, I want to hit this home and reiterate this as much as humanly possible, that this is a process. This is not something that you will be doing quickly or perfectly. You will fuck up. You will make mistakes. There's even a potential to go crazy, like psychosis. That happened to me when I was learning way too much, way too fast. I was like, holy shit. Totally lost my shit because I was making so many connections with the truth. So be careful of that. And I've done a lot of work over here to prevent psychosis for you guys. So go check out my work. Everything's in playlists. It's all organized. So there's a lot of stuff to keep you grounded, and to keep you aware of the certain challenges that you're going to be facing on this path. Okay? And I do readings frequently. And I do shorts every day to keep the vibes high. Alright? So please be careful. As someone who is a 5150'd way too many times in my life, it's not fun. It is a very large betrayal, and it's hard to come back from. And a lot of people don't. So, please take heed to my warning. Don't go crazy. Take your time, and allow yourself the compassion. And I think it's, you're going to heal yourself. You're going to be walking a completely different path. So the things that you used to resonate, like in my late 20s when I was really like going through it in LA, like learning about the corruption, I'm like, oh, I thought Democrats were good. What? Realizing that red and blue are two flocks of the same bird or feather, no, two birds from the same flock, feather, I don't know. Anyway, wing, whatever. You know what I'm fucking trying to say. They work together. And apparently, what we're all learning right now is that Israel is the one holding it all together. So, right on. Super. So, there's this collective awakening happening. And there's all of these different... I don't know what you guys consume on social media. Again, that's so dangerous because we all can cater it to our own wants. But I like to get as much information from as many people as possible. I don't really stay on white supremacy. I don't really need to be over there because I understand. I grew up there. So at this point in time, I'm like, I want to know everyone else, I want to learn. My parents aren't like clans people, right? But they are privileged white folks, rich white folks. My family is still the people that I've cut off. My immediate family is incredibly classist, ableist, racist. But it's like colorblind racism, right? It's like white saviorism. White saviorism is another thing you will have to decolonize from. Been there, done that. Still doing that. I do have a biracial son, and I'm still working on that, making sure that I don't fuck him up, right? We don't really talk about those things. We are autistic. But I do want to, I try my best to at least introduce diversity, right? Like have a whole bunch of different things. Right now he's watching shows about cats, so let's hope he doesn't grow up to be a furry, but anyway, we're still young. But this is, so it's a lot. There's everything needs to be even the calendar. The calendar needs to be decolonized from. The calendar is a Gregorian calendar. Everything, literally everything that we were told is so much deeper and so much more fucking false than, yeah. I saw some woman on TikTok say today, you know, it's becoming abundantly clear because there are waves since 2020, especially since the pandemic. There's been consistent waves of people, but you know, some people are going on Epstein's side, right? Not like, but that's like what they're learning about. That's what they're decolonizing from. And a lot of those folks don't really overlap with like the anti-racist crowd, right? So there's like so many different conversations happening, and all of it is considered decolonizing. But we also have to get to a point where we're collectively making all of, like, instead of the chains, like the links of a chain, right, like to keep us bound, think of it as, you know, bridges to new ways, right? We don't have, like, these motherfuckers are so outnumbered, right? But we live in a system that centers money. Money isn't even real. Nature is real. So follow the lead of nature. And I think that's the thing. Stay grounded in this process. In doing so, like, spend as much time in nature as you can. Not like, you know, I'm not talking about like wilderness camp or like, you know, I'm just going to move into the mountains and never talk to anyone again. That's going on the other side of the spectrum. You want to be part of the solution, okay? You don't want to just avoid what's happening. Decolonizing is, again, taking that responsibility to make changes necessary so we can decolonize the planet, right? Because, again, there's like 13 billionaires, and there's like there's active genocides. Millions of people have been dying, but so let's go with like 8 billion people. Either way, 8 billion and 13. Hello? Hello? What the fuck are we doing? We have to decolonize. Start with Santa. It's a bunch of bullshit. Have a good one.